Chapter 2 of Nicholas, a Manhattan Christmas Story by Carroll Moore. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. At Lucky's. Bryant Park lay deep in snow behind the library. It was silent and deserted, and for a moment Nicholas stood holding the red candle, not knowing which way to turn to go to Lucky's. Then he heard a voice calling.
Nicholas, Nicholas, run, I pray, thrice round the fountain, and when I say, cross over, cross over, cross over, Chris, the way to Lucky's you cannot miss.
Nicholas ran 3 times around the fountain, and the 3rd time round, the brownie, who had been hiding under the canopy of William Cullen Bryant's statue, jumped down, crying,
Come along, Nicholas, or we shall be too late. Lucky goes home early on Christmas Eve.
Just then Nicholas heard a rumbling sound he had heard before, and looking up through the frosty trees, he saw the train he had taken up from Bowling Green, running rapidly back downtown with a light in every window.
I like Bryant Park with the elevated running by,
said Nicholas.
So do I,
exclaimed the brownie.
I love it better than any place on Manhattan Island. I've lived here a long time, Nicholas. Before there was a library here, there was a big reservoir with ivy growing over its walls. It was beautiful in October when the ivy leaves turned red. I always gave a party then, an out-of-doors party at sunrise, for at sunrise 5th Avenue is cleared for dancing all the way from Central Park to Washington Square.
Why not give a party on the roof of the library?
Asked Nicholas.
And invite the oldest fairies in the city up there to look around.
A fine idea,
shouted the brownie.
I could invite the fairies from Bowling Green, the Bowery, Gramercy Park, and Van Cortlandt Park. Oh, Nicholas, I'm so glad you've come to New York. Shall you stay long?
That depends,
said Nicholas.
Do be careful crossing 40th Street,
cautioned the brownie.
It's getting almost as crowded as 42nd Street, and there's no policeman.
40 seconds after Nicholas and the brownie stepped out of Bryant Park, they were walking down a long passageway with steps at the bottom, leading straight to Lucky's Christmas fire. There was a flower shop on one side of the passageway and a hat shop on the other. There was always room enough in the hat shop to hold the hats at any season, but the flower shop was much too small at Christmas. Then the passageway was lined with Christmas trees standing straight against the wall, and there were orange trees with little oranges growing on them, pots of white heather, primroses, cyclamens, and Jerusalem cherries, making a garden path of the way to Lucky's.
Lucky would like it to be this way all the time,
confided the brownie as they scampered along.
Lucky likes gardens best of all.
They could hear people talking and laughing, and the clinking of silver teaspoons and glass goblets, and as they passed the last of the Christmas trees, Nicholas could smell the delicious fragrance of Maryland chicken and Christmas cakes just out of the oven. Nicholas felt a little strange and far away as he stood at the top of the steps leading down into that cheerful room filled with people who seemed to feel so much at home there. There were branches of red berries on the tables and holly wreaths in the windows. There were shining copper and brass candlesticks and jars, pewter mugs and plates and porringers on the chimney-piece and dresser, and the firelight shining on these things made Nicholas think of home. He looked at his candle. It had gone out. Nicholas untied his muffler and stood quite still for a moment.
Do you suppose Lucky will let me light my candle at her fire, Brownie?
He asked.
Of course she will. There comes Lucky now,
whispered the brownie.
Did you ever see such a Christmassy-looking lady?
And Lucky, who was actually even more Christmassy than she appeared to be, looked down just as Nicholas looked up.
Oh, you darlings,
she exclaimed, speaking in a tone so low that no one else could hear her.
I was sure you would be coming, Brownie. Your Christmas bite is already the same as always. I've just seen the cook about it. I've invited 2 of my friends this year, for I knew someone else was coming. I think I know his name. How do you do, Nicholas?
And Lucky took Nicholas's hand and shook it so cordially that the last feeling of strangeness left him.
I'm well.
Said Nicholas.
But how did you know me, Lucky? I had to tell Brownie who I was.
Lucky laughed one of her merriest laughs.
It's a secret from everyone else, but if you really want to know, Nicholas, I had it from a fairy who was hidden away in one of the bulbs I got from my garden last Christmas time. Those tulip bulbs come over from Holland every year, and I always watch for a fairy to give me the news. Last spring I listened, and I heard very plain. On St. Nicholas Day, December 6th, a boy called Nicholas will leave Holland and go forth through France and Belgium to America. Watch for him on Christmas Eve and make him welcome. So you see, Nicholas, I've been expecting you ever since tulip time.
I'm glad I came,
said Nicholas.
I'm starving, Lucky, starving,
murmured the brownie.
So are Anne Carraway and John Moon,
said Lucky, and in no time at all she had piloted the brownie and Nicholas across the room to the table nearest the fire. 2 people were sitting there looking very happy.
I have a little surprise for you,
said Lucky to Anne Carraway.
Shut your eyes tight and don't open them until I give the word.
So John Moon, who was a boy about 21 years old, and Anne Carraway, who was a lady of no particular age, shut their eyes tight, and when Lucky called,
Open,
they saw by the light of a tall red candle which stood in the middle of their table a strange boy about 8 inches high, accompanied by a brownie.
"Oh, Nicholas,"
Anne Carraway said, shaking the hand he stretched out to her.
"I knew you would come this Christmas Eve. I've been telling John that something wonderful, mysterious, and entirely different from every other Christmas was sure to happen, and here you are at last. I suppose you left Holland on St. Nicholas Day, didn't you?"
Yes, I did. But how could you know that, Anne Carraway?
"I felt it in my bones,"
said Anne Carraway, and then her eyes danced so merrily that John Moon and Nicholas burst out laughing. And they laughed so heartily there was no stopping them until Bessie appeared with smoking hot little chicken pies, toasted cheese muffins, guava jelly, mince pie, and some special dainties sent up by the cook for the starving brownie.
"Dear old brownie,"
whispered John after they had all been eating in silence for some time.
"Have often seen you in Bryant Park, but how'd you find out the way to Lucky's?"
O'Brien told me one night as he was closing the gates to the library court. Lucky had brought him a great bunch of flowers from her garden that day. O'Brien loves flowers. I've come often since then, and I know the way upstairs to that little ballroom with the crystal chandeliers and the balcony where you sit and eat cherry pie and tell secrets to Anne Carraway in springtime. I like that little ballroom.
"So do I,"
said John Moon. When they had all eaten as much as they could, John Moon took out his pipe and lit it, and as he smoked and talked and smoked, he leaned over and touched Nicholas's helmet very gently, saying,
"Where'd you find it, old chap?"
On the Chemin des Dames,
said Nicholas, and turned his head away for a moment. Then he said,
John Moon, I want to do something for those children whose homes were destroyed in the war, and I put on this helmet so that I shouldn't forget about it.
"I understand,"
said John Moon.
"I don't want to forget either. I came out of college my freshman year because I wanted to do something. I drove TM over the same road you took to the Chemin des Dames."
"And I understand too, Nicholas,"
said Anne Carraway.
"although I have never been in France except in my dreams. Perhaps I can help you find some way to do the things you want done over there." Will you stay here and tell me just what you think the French children would like to have us do?
I will stay on one condition, Anne Carraway.
And what is the condition?
asked John Moon.
That I'm free to go and come when I feel like it and not fussed over.
I think you'll want to go where Anne Carraway goes,
said John Moon.
for fear of missing something. She makes things happen any time, not just at Christmas.
I'll promise, Nicholas, you shan't be bothered by anybody, and that you shall never go where you don't want to go,
said Anne Carraway.
I'm on my way now to hear the carols at Trinity. Would you two boys like to walk down Fifth Avenue with me?
We'd love it,
shouted John Moon.
Shall I give the red candle to Lucky?
asked Nicholas, and the brownie called out,
Oh, yes, and be sure, Anne Carraway, to get her a branch of your pine and Christmas rose to take home tonight. And another one, please, for O'Brien at the library gate, for I haven't time. I promised the cook to clear up Lucky's kitchen, and then I have to get ready for the party.
Away scampered the brownie down the back stairs, and with a
Merry
Christmas!
to Lucky, away walked Nicholas, Anne Carraway, and John Moon, past the Christmas trees and the door of the flower shop, and up 40th Street to Fifth Avenue.
Shall we cross over?
asked John Moon.
I'd like to.
Said Nicholas.
I want to look in the shop windows.
End of chapter 2.